Joining us now for the interview is Ronan Farrow, along with Jodi Kantor and Megan Twohey at the New York Times. Ronan Farrow won the Pulitzer Prize for his reporting in The New Yorker on Harvey Weinstein's decades of predatory sexual misconduct. His book about reporting that story and the vast resources that Weinstein employed to try to stop it and why he says that story didn't make it out the door at NBC News. That book is called Catch and Kill: Lies, Spies, and a Conspiracy to Protect Predators. It's everywhere. Ronan, thank you for being here. I appreciate it.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for doing this.
So first, I summarized sort of the context of this story, how I think your book fits into it, and sort of what I've learned since. Let me just ask you if I got any of that wrong, or if you want to push back.
I think that was a very accurate, very fair summary.
Okay. And I do believe that it is new, this statement from NBC Universal tonight, that anybody who believes they are constrained from talking about sexual abuse or sexual harassment by a non-disparagement or confidentiality clause, if they come forward to NBC Universal, they will be released from that.
It is new, and NBC executives deserve praise for that. As of today, Rachel, I have spoken to multiple women who knew that I was going to be talking about this more and expressed agony over the fact that they are constrained by these agreements, which, to be clear, this is a very meticulously fact-checked book. NBC's responses and rebuttals are woven into it, including their claim that this was all a coincidence, that they were paying out these women who happened to have these harassment complaints about Lauer and others. That said, these women, 201, considered these to be payouts to silence them. Executives involved told me they were payouts to silence them. The fact that they are ending that and releasing these women is significant. It should be a model for other companies.
So let me ask you about that specifically, because I have been trying to track this down myself. It's such a specific claim. It's so empirical that I feel like I naively believed that I should be able to get to the bottom of this by the time that I had you on the show tonight, independently.
It sounds like you've made some headway.
Well, but on this issue of whether or not enhanced severance or these other types of payment deals and the types of language people sign when they leave, whether women who had allegations against Matt Lauer were treated any differently other than other people who left the company under circumstances that didn't have anything to do with any claims of sexual misbehavior. I feel like those are two data sets that you can compare. Did you actually get access to normal severance to compare this to?
Yes, and it's laid out very clearly in the book. You can judge for yourself, but this was described as atypical, not part of the general process of people leaving the company by just about everyone involved in these transactions, except for these spokespeople putting out the statements now. On the inside, not only the women who received these payouts and their agents, but also senior executives on the NBC Universal side who brokered these agreements described them openly as sexual harassment settlements. Okay.
In terms of this change that's been announced tonight right here from NBC Universal, saying that these non-disparagement or confidentiality clauses don't constrain women from talking about these things, based on your reporting, what you just described, and some ongoing reporting since the book, it sounds like you think that women will come forward now once they've been released.
That'll be their choice, but I do know that, as I said, women felt constrained. They were agonized over that, and I think this will go a long way towards making them feel that they can discuss this openly.
Why do you think that you were told to pause further reporting on your Weinstein story at NBC News? I was able to independently verify this. NBC News confirming to me that happened, but they say it was due to concerns about your reporting and a breakdown of trust between you and the investigative unit. Why do you, holistically, not in any one of these instances in particular, but holistically, why do you think they told you to pause your reporting?
Look, important to note, this past several rounds of legal and standards reviews, there was no breakdown of trust. I was told specifically that there were no issues with the reporting again and again. And over the course of the reporting that we lay out here, there is a paper trail of the shutting down of the story. And that includes Noah Oppenheim, the president of NBC News, on 6 occasions ordering us to stop reporting. The head of the investigative unit underneath him ordering 8 times to stop reporting. That eventually escalated to ordering us to cancel interviews. And look, you can judge for yourself. It's laid out in the book whether what we had was enough. We had a tape of Weinstein admitting to sexual assault. We had multiple named women in every version of this story. But that actually is not the point. The order to stop was unjournalistic. And this is not just my account, it's my working level producer's account. He recently wrote a piece for Vanity Fair saying, I witnessed all of this. It was an inappropriate shutdown of explosive reporting we had. And we were concerned that people were going to continue to get hurt. What the book lays out is that this was a set of executives making these decisions, all the way up to our parent company, who were cornered on some very difficult issues within the company. And if indeed they are moving towards more transparency, releasing women from NDAs, maybe eventually this independent review that people inside this building have called for again and again, those would be positive steps.
In terms of canceling interviews, the interviews that you say NBC canceled, were those interviews in shadow? Were those interviews on camera? Were those interviews off camera? What kind of interviews were they canceling?
So that includes fully on the record offers to go on camera full face. There's a wonderful, brave woman named Emily Nestor who has gone on the record in recent days and talks about in the book how she offered, while the story was on NBC, Rose McGowan was full face on the record for many months. Rose McGowan was getting intimidated legally and was becoming frustrated with NBC slow rolling the story for months and months, pulled out. The moment that happened, Emily Nestor said, I will record my interview again. She had previously been in shadow, full face. The executives here were not interested in that. So it included a combination of interviews in shadow, which we do very often in our investigative stories, including ones I've aired on this network, and also full face on the record accounts that were very explosive and ultimately were a part of the New Yorker story.
When NBC News told us tonight, again, I think this might be an unprecedented statement from them. Quote, we very much wanted to break this story, which is why we assigned it and supported it editorially and financially for 7 months. We are profoundly disappointed that we weren't able to do so. I know that might just sound like an expression of feelings. I will say inside the building, that expression of profound disappointment that the story didn't get broken here is meaningful to me because I feel like I've been waiting to hear that. But I wanted to put that to you and ask you how that strikes you and whether you share the sense that that's a significant expression.
The book is in many ways a love letter to and a tribute to fellow reporters, including great reporters across this building at NBC News. Many of them are sources that allowed me to tell this story. They are anguished over this. They were lied to. The general counsel of this company in this book says we had no settlements in this period where we ultimately lay out a paper trail of 7 settlements. There is a feeling in this building, as you alluded to, that coverage is being distorted, and good journalists have a problem with that. I think the transition from an almost sort of Trumpian response of we dig in, we reiterate the talking point that there wasn't a there to the story, to something that more forthrightly acknowledges disappointment and a need to release people from non-disclosure agreements. That is immensely positive, and I can only imagine will be received well here.
There's one other aspect of this, Ronan, that I want to ask you about that actually I'm going to ask you about both as a lawyer and a reporter. But if you could stick with us through the break, I'll ask you about that right after this. We're back with Ronan Farrow, contributor at The New Yorker magazine, the author of the new bestseller, Catch and Kill. We'll be right back.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.